Hey friends, it's Robin. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing some February releases. I have a ton of books to talk about today. I have been trying to do better about keeping up with indie releases as well as trade releases. There's a lot this month. So let's get right into the new releases. February 7th is the first release date of the month, and it's a big one. First, we have Not Your Ex's Hexes by April Asher. This is the sequel to Not the Witch You Wed, which was a witchy rom-com that I really enjoyed, and this is the follow-up. In this one, we are following the sister of the heroine from book one, and in that first book, this sister, her name is Rose, was supposed to be like the prima witch, or like the leader of the witches, and our heroine from book one ended up taking that role over. So Rose ends up stepping down, and now she doesn't really know what to do with her life. And I think that it is her falling in love with a half demon. This has a really good body positivity in it. I loved our plus size heroine in book one, so I'm really hoping love this heroine as well. But book one was really fun and funny, so I'm hoping to get the same thing in this one. After that, we have Cupid's Peak by Lee Jacot, which is the next book in the Hollow Knights series. I read Hollows Grow in October and absolutely loved it. And this is the Valentine's Day novella set in that same world series. I don't think they're connected in any way. All I know about it is this little blurb that is in Goodreads, and it says, a blind date on Valentine's Day at a 5-star resort, a hermit, an introvert, a homebody. I don't know anything else about it. I'm really excited. This cover is adorable. The last book that I read in this series was crazy steamy, and I am hoping to get the same thing in here, and I will be reading this around Valentine's Day. Then we have The Right Move by Liz Tomford, which is the follow-up to A Mile High, which I read in January and absolutely fell in love with. This is following the brother of our heroine in book one, who is an all-star basketball player, and he is having a romance with one of the other flight attendants. Her name was Indy, and Indy got out of a relationship in book one. She found her boyfriend, her like long-term boyfriend, cheating on her, and she ends up moving in with our hero. And I think it is a like forced proximity romance. I'm so excited. Their like awkward interactions in book one were fantastic, and I cannot wait to read this. And then lastly on this day is actually an indie debut, and that is Give a Witch a Chance by Colette Rivera. I believe that this one has 2 bisexual main characters in it and is also witchy. I want to say that our heroine is a witch, and this is like a second chance romance, and her ex is human and doesn't know that magic is real, and he's convinced that like magic is not real. Something is cursed, maybe his shop or his house, something like that. But this cover immediately caught my attention. I am really excited to give this author a try. I'm trying to be better this year about actually making time for debut books, and the fact that this is not only a debut but an indie debut makes me very excited. Hi, editing Robin here. You're gonna see me popping in and out quite a bit in this video because there are some books that I missed talking about, and then there are quite a few books that I have learned about in the last few days that I would really like to add into this list. So first up is Wild Blood by Lauren Blackwood, which is this author's sophomore novel. Her first book was Within These Wicked Walls, which was a gothic Jane Eyre retelling that I really loved. This is set in Jamaica, and we're following a heroine who was kidnapped as a child and taken to, what did they call it, the Exotic Lands Touring Company, and she was forced to be a tour guide there with other wild bloods who are all people who have these magical abilities to protect travelers in the like Jamaican jungles. And she is now 18, and she is passed up for a team lead position, even though she is the most powerful wild blood. And she ends up having to work with the guy who does get the job, and I believe they have a romance together. It says, the jungle is treacherous, and between hypnotic river spirits, soul-devouring women that shed their skin like snakes, and her ex out for revenge, our heroine must decide, is a promotion at a corrupt company really what she wants? I'm very excited for this. I really loved this author's writing in the first book. And then on February 9th, we have 2 more indie books coming out. First is The Husband Hoax by Saxon James. This is the start of a new series by this author. I have absolutely adored this author in the past, but this is an MM romance, and I believe that it is a marriage of convenience, or at least like a fake engagement. And I think one of them needs a date to a wedding or something like that, and the other one needs to get married for an inheritance. So it's a pretty like classic trope, but it is queer, which makes me really excited. And this author is like such a comfort author for me. Her books are always so lighthearted and cozy and adorable. And I'm back. So, next up, we have Vicious Bonds by Shanora Williams, which is the start of a new dark fantasy romance. And the synopsis of this is one of those synopses where it's more like a little excerpt than actual plot points. So I'm gonna pop up this little graphic that the author did. It sounds like it is a dark romance with mild fantasy elements. I believe one of the main characters is telepathic. It says that it's angsty, morally gray, and an interracial romance. That's all I really know about it at this point. Like I said, the synopsis for it is more excerpt-y, where it's like, Willow, I was never meant to live an ordinary life, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, so it doesn't have the plot as much. So I believe this is Mafia adjacent, but set in a fantastical world. And I believe it's the start of a trilogy. I'm not 100% on that. But I do know that this also ends on a cliffhanger. So just a heads up for anyone that doesn't like books that end on cliffhangers, you might want to wait until at least the next book is released because the author has said that this one will end on a cliffhanger. And then lastly, we have Coming Home by Kennedy Ryan, which is an Audible original audio book thing. And this is a second chance romance, which Kennedy Ryan does so well. So I'm very excited for this one. This is following these two characters. Our heroine is a morning show host, and our hero is a journalist. And the two of them always had this really strong attraction in college, but nothing ever came of it. And now their university is having some sort of homecoming event, and they come back for that and rekindle their romance. I love Kennedy Ryan. And I'm very excited to get another second chance romance from her because, like I said, she does them really well. I'm pretty sure that this is quite short. Most of these Audible original things are only a couple of hours long. So this is another one that I'm hoping to read this month. And then on February 10th, we have Powerless by Elsie Silver. Nobody probably needs me to talk about this new release. I feel like everyone in the romance community has been hyping up this author in this series nonstop. But this is the third book. This is following the brother's best friend, and I want to say that it is a childhood friends to lovers romance. Don't hold me to that, but I think that's what this one is. I just read book one in the series and absolutely loved it. And not only is the physical book coming out on this day, but the audiobook is also coming out on this day, which is so, so awesome. And then lastly on this day, we have XO by D. Rose, which is a novelette. This is only 53 pages long, so the synopsis for this one is really short. It just says that after receiving life-changing news, our heroine returns to her father's hometown looking for answers, and then she ends up meeting the owner of a bed and breakfast, and the two of them work towards experiencing true love and healing and everything like that. It sounds really cute. It kind of gives me like it's going to be Valentine's Day vibes, just with the name of the cover and a bed and breakfast. So I do plan to read this around Valentine's Day. On to February 14th, we have The Ruined by Renee Audier, which is the fourth and final book in the beautiful quartet. I love this YA fantasy. It is a fantasy romance paranormal series, and it is probably my favorite YA series. And I don't read a lot of YA, but this series is so good. I know book one got criticized for not being paranormal enough, but I disagree. This series is super paranormal, especially once you get out of book one. It is a very slow build in book one, but it is so worth it. This is a historical YA fantasy series set in New Orleans, following a heroine who is starting over, and she ends up getting wrapped into this like paranormal underworld and all of this paranormal political maneuvering, and it is a like opposites attract dark romance. It's so good. I loved it a lot. Can't wait for this final book. Another sequel that I'm really excited about is Stupid Cupid by Maeve Black, and this is the follow-up to Monster Claws. We are following the brother of our heroine from book one, and he is Valentine, and obviously Valentine's Day romance. Not only are we following the brother of the heroine, but we're also following the brother of the hero in book one. This is a second chance romance, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait for this. This romance got introduced in book one, and we learned that these two had like a secret romance, and they're rekindling their romance. Both of these heroes are super grumpy. I love me a good grumpy romance. This world is ridiculous and funny, and I love it. And then lastly on this day is a book that is very much so outside my comfort zone, and that is A Stone Cold Fox by Rachel Kohler Croft. This was a book that was not on my radar whatsoever until Berkeley reached out to me about it. And the way that they pitched this book just immediately intrigued me. The little blurb that ended up getting me was that it was Gone Girl meets Luckiest Girl Alive, in a debut novel about a young woman who's worked her way into one of the country's wealthiest families, armed with the skills that she learned from her con artist mother. So that was a little blurb that immediately pulled me in. So the full synopsis is that after a lifetime of instruction in the art of swindling men, Bee wants nothing more than to escape her shadow and close the door on their sordid past. When Bee finds her final mark in the perfectly dull, blue-blooded Colin, she's ready to deploy all her tricks one final time. The challenge isn't getting the ring, but rather the approval of his family and everyone else in their tax bracket, particularly his childhood best friend, Gail. Going toe-to-toe with Gale isn't a threat to an expert like Bee, but what begins as an amusing cat-and-mouse game quickly develops into a dangerous chase. As the truth of her past threatens to come roaring out, she finds herself racing against the clock to pass the finish line before everything is exposed. I'm really excited for this. Again, it sounds so different than what I normally read. I'm really excited to kind of expand my horizons, try something new. And then lastly on this day, we have a book that I just recently heard about from Heather from Hia Booktubes, and that is Heart Haunt Havoc by Freydis Moon. And this is a transgender, non-binary, gothic romance horror novel following one of our main characters who is an exorcist. Our other MC's house is extremely haunted, and it is also not only haunted by all these creepy creatures, but there is a vengeful wolf-headed spirit who might be the key to quieting their sleepless nights. This sounds so outside of my comfort zone, but I'm extremely intrigued. I feel like I should have just pre-filmed this entire video at this point, but here we are. On February 15th, we have Fire and Brimstone by Stella Williams, which I also heard about from Heather from Hia Booktubes. And it seems like this one is part of the Shifting Hearts series, which is a series that is written by a bunch of different authors. So I'm assuming they can all be read as standalones, but this is a shifter romance. And it says that our heroine is a phoenix shifter, which is what actually pulled me into this because that sounds so cool. And it says that everyone wants a piece of her, the most persistent being the only other phoenix in existence, and he wants to mate with her purely because they are the only two phoenixes. It says sparks fly and buildings burn in this whirlwind tale of arson, obsession, and fated mates. Then onto February 16th. As of right now, Maniac by Emily James is scheduled to come out on this day. This has already been pushed back once, so I'm unsure about whether or not this is actually going to be released on this day, but this is the final book in the Necessary Evil series. This is Aiden and Thomas's romance. I've already talked about this in January's new releases, so I'm not going to dwell on it here, but hopefully it comes out this month. I have absolutely nothing on the 21st. For whatever reason, that is a dead release date. Nothing is coming out on the 21st, okay? So onto February 23rd, there are actually 3 books, but they are all part of the same series. There is a new fantasy romance series, like Regency romance, that is called The Monsters Ball. And the first 3 books in that series are coming out. First, we have How to Marry a Marble Marquess. We also have The Monstrous Duke and I, as well as Aiming the Viscount Viper. Those were tongue twisters. These covers are everything. I am so obsessed with the covers in this series. I want to say that like the next group of these comes out in early March, so these are going to kind of come out rapid fire. Each of the books is written by a different author. I have no idea if they're connected in any way. If I had to guess, probably not. They're probably just all set in the same world, but I am really excited to give all of these a try. And then lastly, for this little interlude, Ignore the Cat, is To the Moon and Back by Anna Walker, which is an romance following one of our heroes who has just adopted his baby nephew, his like newborn nephew, and his longtime boyfriend leaves him as soon as the adoption goes through, and he ends up having a romance with the nanny that he hires to help get him through. That's all I know about it. I love a good like single dad daddy romance. It gets me every time, whether it's queer or otherwise. It's just such a fun dynamic. I really love N.R. Walker's romances, and I'm expecting to love this one as well, especially given how freaking adorable this cover is. And then lastly, on my birthday, February 28th, we have The Neighbor Favor by Christina Forrest. This is following like a shy and bookish heroine who ends up recruiting her neighbor to help teach her how to date. And it turns out that he is secretly one of her favorite authors and she doesn't know that it is him. And I assume they fall in love. I love a forced proximity romance. It's like a secret identity romance. I'm so excited. This cover is adorable and I cannot wait to read this one. I do have an arc of this one, so I will be reading this one right away. But that is going to be it for February releases. That was a lot of releases, pretty rapid fire. I tried to keep those synopsis as short and sweet as possible, but I will have all of the books linked down below, so if you want to go and read the full synopses of any of these, they will all be linked down below for you to go and peruse. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if there are any additional books coming out in February that I might have missed that you were super excited about, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye!